got introduced to this. So we started off by just Zooming each other, and then they sent me the songs, and I kind of went through them all and just took some notes. And we actually started kind of pre-pro via when they were still in San Francisco and I was up here. So we kind of did pre-pro. So I just listened to the songs, made notes, and said, this intro is too long. Shorten this. You guys need a hook here, all that kind of stuff. And we went all the way down from 1 to 11. And then we did pre-pro in Vancouver. So we did right before we recorded. So we recorded at a place called the Armory Studios in Vancouver for the bed tracks, which is, the bass drums and rhythm guitars, like kind of the basic tracks. And it's a pretty famous studio, like Thunderstruck was done in there, and Living on a Prayer. Like it used to be Bruce Fairbairn's studio, and a lot of big rock from the 80s and 90s. Cranberries was done in there. In Excess, all that kind of stuff. So it's my go-to studio for bed tracks. I can do drums and bass and all that rhythm guitars here at my place, but I prefer to have a really big studio for it, for just to spread out and get comfortable. And the studio owner was gracious enough to let me use it for pre-pro, which is amazing, because one thing I absolutely hate is going into a rehearsal room and trying to do pre-pro and feedback, and it's loud and you can't hear anything. And so I begged him, and he let us go in there, which was amazing. So we set everything up, and we kind of went through each song, all the parts, all the kick drum patterns, and really refined the structures. And then what I like to do is I like to get the sounds first, and then right before we cut, I decide on the BPM, because I want to have the full picture in mind with the sounds and the vibe and everything. And then we did that. So we basically did there, and then we go, we move it up and we move it down until we find that perfect BPM moment where it fits the kind of cadence of the vocals, and where it sits in that pocket where, I call it the head bob. You keep people moving. And then once we had that locked down, well, we just started tracking. And the beauty of STRATEJACKET is their drummer is probably the best young drummer I've ever recorded in my life. He's incredible. And he's so on the click and everything, and his fills, and I hardly had to do anything with him. It was unbelievable. So we got a lot of the bass, drums, and rhythm guitar, and for the guitar too, there's a magic amplifier. So the one good thing about the Armory Studios is every band that Bruce Fairbairn ever worked with, they left gear there. So there's Malcolm and Angus's guitars, Joe Perry from Aerosmith's Les Paul is there. Just amazing pieces of gear. So we had a bass, I think it was a 50s or 60s P bass that used to belong to John Paul Jones from Zeppelin. And I think that's what we used for the bass. So we used the house kit, which was an AOT kit with the bass, John Paul Jones. And then there was a 1959 Fender Bassman, which is an incredible amp. They're probably worth $50,000 now, because so the guy, Jim Marshall, who created Marshall, used to work for Fender, and he created the Bassman. And it's kind of like the very first Marshall, because it was his creation before he left Fender and started Marshall. So it's kind of like a Marshall / Fender hybrid that has an amazing breakup in its speakers, and the distortion is so unique and so warm and stuff. So I wanted to get as much of that, because they won't let me take that out of the studio because it's like priceless. So we got that, all the rhythms, and it was amazing. And then we came back to my place on Vancouver Island, and I basically have a mini Armory Studios here. I got the guy who built the Armory to build my place for overdubs and vocals and all the fun kind of little bells and whistles and icing, and then we just start finishing songs, and it's been amazing. So the guys are really great musicians. Jackson is an awesome singer. His pitch is like dead on. I barely have to tune him. Fabian's a very creative bass player. Like his parts are very juicy, very reminiscent of like Chris Novoselic from Nirvana meets kind of Mike Dirnt from Green Day, like very creative, lots of hooks, not just playing the roots. So they have a really big sound for a 3-piece. It's like huge. So I need a lot of overdubs and thickening agents with these guys, because everything just sounds so big. And we really, really dialed in the tones. My engineer, Carl, is an amazing sonic engineer, and he's so good at capturing my vision for the sonic landscape. and everything is just fat and big. And I grew up kind of in rock punk bands, and I played in a punk band that was signed to Elektra in the '90s. So I love that kind of music, and it's got to be big and fat and aggressive and have attitude. And we really got sounds that kind of stand on their own. It's pretty awesome. So we're just at the tail end of the record now. We got about another few days to go, and but I'm really excited about this. The songs are awesome. The playing is good. The vocals are great. Like everything's just coming together, and we're all digging deep, and we've got some really cool surprises in some of the songs. I've snuck in some kind of Killers influence because I'm a huge Killers fan. So on some of the guitar hooks, I've snuck a synth underneath the guitar hooks, and it sounds super 80s, which is really cool. Little flavor of that. And then we got a little grunge sprinkling, like on some of the bass parts and some of the harmonies. I'm going for kind of Nirvana-esque harmonies. So it's a really interesting alternative hybrid that I think sounds very fresh. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for the world to hear it. I'm very, very pumped. And I, a really good friend of mine, one of the best mixers in the world, Chris Lord-Alge, who mixed all the big Green Day records and Rise Against, another one of my favorite bands of all time. We don't have the biggest budget because they're a baby band, and I begged and pleaded and said, buddy, I need a favor. And he came through, and he's going to mix the whole record. So it's going to it's going to put the little cherry on top. So I'm very, very excited for that. So yeah, it's been amazing, and I can't wait for the world to hear what we have.